Hi, welcome to the Interviews with Hunting Masters, brought to you by the OutdoorInsiders.com and the Sneak Tech Steep Boot. Uh, Today we're gonna do a little recap of our elk season here, and I'm gonna put my glasses on since I have a hard time looking at the computer. Oh yeah, there I am. Hard time looking at the computer screen without my glasses since I'm getting old as fuck. I got my cousin Anthony on the phone. What's up, Tone?
What's going on, John? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Just catching up after being away. So,
I
um,
lost.
what's that? You lost me?
Yeah,
Well, and your
I
internet's
got you.
crappy. Your internet's crappy. What can I tell you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can hear you now.
All right, good deal. Well, so you were in Unit 10 with Scott. Scott drew a friend of ours. Scott drew a Unit 10 archery tag, bull tag, and you were there calling for him and helping him out because he's never been elk hunting before. So tell me about it. I want to hear a story. I got to see the little video you sent me, but I still haven't heard the whole story.
All right. Well, it's a long story, but we'll get to the points. Basically, a week before the hunt, I told you, I'm like, hey, John, I've never been into that unit. I've been trying to map out everything that we could go do, where we should start, where do you think we should glass from, all the points and whatnot. I mean, Scott's only been on 3 hunts with me, and this was the third hunt, so 2 other hunts prior to this. One rifle hunt on a coos deer hunt, which he got a coos deer, and one mule deer hunt with his bow that he's had opportunity with Billy, but he just could get a shot off. So this is his third hunt, his first time ever putting in for elk, and he
And he
gets
draws
a
a Unit
unit
10.
10.
What
the
a
luck, the
cool.
luck, the luck, the luck of the Jewish people, I promise. So,
Oh, poor Scott.
but
Yeah.
God bless him. So he gets this unbelievable tag, and he doesn't have a clue. He's never done any of this, so he's relying on me to help him out and hold his hand throughout the whole process, which I have no problem doing. But I've never been to the unit. I always hunted 6B all my life and 6A. Well, for last year for the first time, but I never even stepped foot in Unit 10. So I came to your house. We marked off all these spots on the map for Unit 10. Also, Gasper gave me some spots. He came and, met up with me and you and said, hey, go over here, go over there. And I
Mhm.
had all these spots on the map. And you told me just to go to this one hill so that I could glass for like 5 miles. I had like a 360 view for 5 miles. So my goal was to make it to that point on Thursday when I got there.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what I did.
that came from my friend Rigo, David Rigo. He gave me that spot because I gave him a call before you got to my house. Asked to pick his brain a little bit because it's been a while since I've been in that. I only hunted deer in there. I always hunt the cataract. So, which is okay for elk, but it's not exactly where the elk are when the rut's kicked in. So, but anyway, so yeah, we marked up the spots on your map, and is that what you headed out there first?
Well, I was going to one of your spots actually, and you gave me the Onyx maps on my phone, which, man, that was key. That was great to have that. I mean, you press that little button, and we've downloaded the maps prior to to me leaving, so I didn't have to. There was no service there anyway. I
Right.
mean, so having those downloaded onto my phone, even though I have the Onyx maps on my GPS, but having it on the phone just made it that much easier.
Oh,
I
it's so
mean,
much better review. You can see everything. It's clean and clear, and you got that awesome satellite view that you can't get on. I mean, even with the color screen and a touch screen on a Garmin or whatever, it's not nearly as detailed, and it's not as easy to use. I
I,
mean, you're so
I agree. I agree. It's
so.
like using Google Maps in a sense
Mhm.
with your phone, and using it with the Onyx Maps was very similar, and it was nice. It was great to have. I mean, I still use my GPS. Don't get me wrong, but if I didn't there's one thing that everybody told me, especially Gasper. He's like, if you've never been to Unit 10, you're definitely gonna get lost in Unit 10. It doesn't matter how great you are with the maps, you're gonna get lost. I mean, it's a
It's
big
big.
unit,
It's big, and it's
and
roads everywhere.
oh, I mean,
Hmm.
it's nuts. So my worry was to get to the spot you were telling me that the way I was going, I wanted to go the easiest route. Even though it was the longer route, I wanted it to make the easier route that I could find it.
Hmm.
So, we had everything packed up in Nextera. I mean, I looked like a freaking, I don't know. I mean, I looked like I was going camping for two
Gypsy.
months. Yeah. Gas cans hanging out from the back and whatnot. But everybody's like, bring gas because you can't, to get back to something, it's going to take you at least an hour and a half to get back to any type of gas or
Yeah.
store. And they're not lying. It's like a 55-minute drive anywhere just to get to the next spot.
Right.
So we finally make it there. We get to this fence, and I open up the fence. It's the game and fish fence, and we're about to drive away, and this blue Isuzu Trooper comes to the fence line. And my buddy's like, Scott's like, should I open it for him? I'm like, yeah, go ahead and open it. He opens up the gate, and it's an Indian-looking gentleman. He's about maybe 28 years old. He's got some Native American in him, you could tell. So, you hunting? I go, yeah. I go, we're elk hunting. You know any spots? Just to throw it out there, just, shooting the shit. And he goes, yeah, I do. And he goes, you head up this mountain right over there. And I've been hearing them bugle all night long. I've been mule deer hunting over there. And we're like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. He goes, do not hunt the front, hunt the back. He goes, if you hunt from the front, you're going to push him to the,
Push him further back.
don't hunt all the way down back and push him to the front towards your unit. So I was like, all right. He goes, you know what? Before you go, let me tell you to a couple other spots that I know, and then you could head over there. So we spent maybe 2 hours, maybe about an hour and a half with this guy, and he
Wow, that
took us
was
to a
nice.
couple, like, yeah, I mean, come on. This doesn't happen
Tick.
every day.
Yeah.
And he's lived there all his life. So it was like having an in by God's faith to take us to these spots. So he starts driving us around and saying, okay, this is a great water hole, but there's going to be a lot of hunters over here. This is a great
Hmm.
water hole. There's going to be a lot of hunters over here and whatnot. So by the time we're getting done, it's like 4:30. And he's like, it's going to take you about an hour and 15 minutes to drive to that spot. I said, okay. So we hightail it back there, truck full of stuff, get everything, get to the spot, drive all the way to the end. And we're unpacking, getting our, tents up and yada, yada,
Hmm.
yada. And I'm like, he told me, he's like, there's a couple good mule deer over there.
Hmm.
And he's like, I'm not going to hunt it tonight. He goes, yesterday was my last day hunting, even though today's the last day. I'm like, well, I got a tag. Well, I'll grab my bow and I'll hunt for that night. So we finally get everything settled. I mean, it's probably 6:10. We
Hmm.
got about 25 minutes left of light. I'm like, I grabbed my bow and I told Scott, I'm like, don't grab your bow. I'm like, because he didn't have a deer tag. I'm like, don't grab your bow. Just come. Let's go. Literally, I'm not talking, maybe 2 minutes after we hiked up the little ledge of where we were camping from, I'm hearing screaming. And I'm like, oh my God, they're coming. And I'm hearing screaming again from my right and my left and ahead of me. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Six B is not one of those high end units, and those are the only units I've really been in, or
Hmm.
5B North, or the fives and the sixes, 6A. And I'm like, hey, they're coming straight at us. So I'm like, get in this bush. I got scared because I didn't want them to come charging right at us, and we can't shoot him. I didn't want to
Hmm.
spook him for the next day. So I'm like, get down. Our wind is perfect. The wind is not going to us, but once they pass us, the wind is going to hit them, and they're going to know we're here. So I kind of wanted him to get down. Literally not, I want to say 90 seconds later, here comes that bull right at the tree that we were standing at.
Oh,
We
jeez.
Two, not one, but two. So There's two bulls now right in front of us, less than 35 yards. And Scott's face was like priceless.
I bet.
He's just like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, we just got here, what, an hour ago, and we're
Yeah.
already seeing bulls. So that night I backed out. I said, we're not going. I'm like, we're not going anywhere. I'm like, we're not going to spook anything. I don't want to touch anything. I don't want them to smell us. Let's just go back to camp, eat some food, and we'll go at it in the morning. So whatever, we get some sleep early in the morning. We head out, and they were screaming all night long. They never. I mean,
That's
that's
the
all.
best.
You don't get any sleep.
Yeah.
But our camp was literally 50 yards from the fence line from the Indian res. So
Okay.
we couldn't. You can't hunt the Indian res,
Right.
and all the bulls that were screaming were coming from the Indian res. We had two bulls, only two bulls that were close to that were like on our side. So in the morning, we were hearing two bulls bugling from the left. Well, the left would be south of
Okay.
us. So I'm like, well, let's go to those bulls because we can't get on those other bulls.
Mm-hmm.
So we heading south, and I'm calling, I'm bugling now. I'm bugling to them, but every time I bugle, I feel like they were getting a little further away,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, damn, that's not working. So I tried to cow call a little bit, but nothing was coming in. So we kept on pushing, and then I'm hearing them, and we get to maybe, I want to say 80, 85 yards. And I don't know if the wind just like changed just like that, and they caught a whiff of us, and woof, they took off running. And that wind, the wind can change
Yeah.
in a second.
Yeah. I experienced that myself.
So as we're making our approach to them, they take off. That rest of that morning was a bust. But we wanted to explore the area. We basically walked into their bedding area. Like I said, I never stepped foot in this area. I didn't know anything about it. So we're now in their beds, and I'm like, oh, I just screwed that up. You never want to walk in
Yeah.
their beds,
Yeah,
especially.
not necessarily though. I mean, they're not whitetail. Elk aren't nearly as like I'll tell you of my hunt. I basically I busted one out, and then 2 hours later he was back in the same spot. It's just all how bad they want to be where they want to be.
True,
So
true. I agree. So we just, we kept on making our way. We found the ridge, and I started glassing, and I couldn't find them. I couldn't find them that morning. I couldn't find where they went. I was glassing other ridges and whatnot, but the elk that were still in the res were going nuts.
yeah.
You could still hear them from a mile and a half away from where we were at. You could still hear them like faintly,
Mm-hmm.
a couple bulls still screaming. So I said, all right, whatever. Let's go back to camp, do what we got to do. And it was probably like 1 o'clock at that time. I'm like, let's catch a little quick nap, whatever, relax, and then we'll go at it in the morning. I said, at nighttime, I said, you know what? Let's see if we could call them in from the res and see if we could get a play out on them. So we get to a spot close to the fence line that on the opposite end where we're camping, and I start making sweet cow calls, and I'm like doing a Jay Scott calling, what's his name,
Steve Chappell.
Steve Chappell, and I use all Steve Chappell's calls. I don't know, for some reason that's the only one that comes out. I could blow that real good. That little pink one.
Mm-hmm.
I know you said you can't blow it as good as, but for some reason I blow that one like real good. And
The brown one that you bugle with freaking sounds fantastic. That's
yeah,
a
but
Rocky. That's
that's
a
a
Rocky
Rocky
Mountain
Mountain.
also. Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's Steve Chappell's with Rocky Mountain, aren't they?
yeah. Steve Chappell's also with Rocky Mountain, but okay. I think that brown one's called the Raging Bull, the Pro Series Rocky Mountain Raging Bull one. That's what that one's called.
Okay.
And then I like the blue one. I think it's the Challenge elk call. There's
Okay.
the other blue reed, but the pink one, I don't know. I don't know the name of that one, but
That's the excited estrus Steve Chappell one you're talking about, right?
I guess so. It's pink. And then I also
It's
have that.
pink or is it orange? It's orange, isn't it
It's,
orange?
it's like orange pinkish. Yeah, maybe
Ah, whatever.
it's this one right here.
I can't see it.
Uh,
You're not showing it in the camera. There you go. Yeah, it's not pink. That's orange.
it's like a pinkish orange. So, and then I have his whatever, the one with the wood on it. I don't know the name of that one. That
Yeah.
elk call. And they just loved it. I mean, they were answering. They were screaming at me. So now I'm doing these calls, and not one bull is screaming at me. There's 7 bulls screaming at me from all like from the whole meadow, but they're all on the Indian res. You
Mm-hmm.
can't see them, but they're screaming from way back there. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm just doing it. I'm trying to like call as loud as possible. So I'm using the reed, and I'm like calling loud, and I'm kind of
Right.
using the grunt. I'm using the grunt tube to help out to get that voice out there.
Right.
And I can't tell you, I had this bull come straight to us, like on the fence line,
Uh huh.
and 2 cows and two cows with two of their
Calves.
babies, 2 calves, come right to the fence line. So the females, the cows were on my fence line,
Uh huh.
and the bull is on the Indian line.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, he's gonna come. But they kept on staying at the fence line. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I not coming in? And every time I called, the bull would scream at me, and the cows were just staying right there with the bull. I'm like, forget this. I'm like, I'm turning on the FX. I turn on the FX, and I pull the calf in distress,
Mm-hmm.
and here they come. Here comes those cows. They're coming right to me, and Scott's probably like 30 yards in front of me in a tree,
mm-hmm.
just standing, waiting. And here comes the cows. But the bull, he was what I mean, the herd bull. He was tremendous. He was like at least, and you know me, I kind of like tailor
Yeah.
things down. I would say he was a 370, even though I would say he was probably bigger than a 370. But
No, really? Is that
I'm
the
telling
video?
you,
Or were
no,
they
you
the one
don't.
that jumps over the fence?
No, that's a little one. That's
Oh, I
small
was gonna
weight.
say
No,
that ain't no 370. Okay.
I didn't capture any of this on video. Um, I was just focused because I was trying to call, use all my hands and this and that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
do anything. This is the first night. I wasn't even thinking about videoing that day. And so the cows came basically close to Scott, about 30 yards from Scott,
Mm-hmm.
but the bull never jumped the fence.
Oh, son of a
And I'm
bitch.
like, son of a gun. And then you hear the calves like trying to call in the other calf, which was the coolest thing. I wish I did get it on video. And all I see is the sun going down and
Yeah.
down and down. So I stopped calling, thinking, all right, maybe if I stop calling, they'll come over to me. And nothing. The the elk just kind of went to my left, and the bull just ran off into the distance. Then I start calling again with an estrus call, and here comes 4 more bulls coming my way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my God, here they come. Here they come. But the light's getting lower and lower and lower. And now I'm putting that FX call like loud so that they can hear it, and they're coming. I'm not using my mouth reads anymore because like they can't hear it as good. Next thing I know, I see this at least a 350.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being low on it. Okay, probably bigger. So a 350 bull, we'll say that, gets to the fence line, and I'm like, just jump, just jump, just jump. And he's just waiting there. Every time I call, he would call at me. Every time he'd scream, I'd hit
Cut him
him like
off.
real good. Yeah, but I wouldn't come off with a bugle. I'd come off with with an extra sound.
Oh, okay.
And he's just getting like more and more excited. Like I can see like he wants to come over, but he doesn't want to come over. And the light is getting lower and lower and lower. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I got to do something. So I grab the Steve Chappell, that little brown, like I said, it's like a wood one.
Mm-hmm.
And I start doing some really sweet noises with that one. And something in that just enticed him. And he just comes, he jumps the fence. At this time, I'm like, it's getting dark. I mean, shooting light is probably not, it's like on the it's like on the edge of it being legal and not legal. But Scott could not see it. He did not see any of it.
Hmm.
And it got too dark and he couldn't make a shot, basically.
Okay.
So that night was a bust.
Well, it wasn't a
But
bust, but
it
you
wasn't
didn't
a
get
bust,
one.
but he couldn't get one. Yeah. So I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. The next morning, same situation. The wind was heading north. So that's going straight to the res.
Right.
So there's no way of calling those bulls in. And I heard one bull bugling up towards the south. So I'm like, let's go head that way. And it's the same situation that we did earlier the day before. But this time I'm like, I'm not going to spook these ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of made a path to get to them without them ever noticing us and us not to intercept them while they're going to their beds.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up finding this bull on another knob about a mile and a half from where we were bedded. We
That was
got
the
with
picture. The picture you sent me.
the picture I sent you,
Okay.
correct. So he's about 277 yards from us. I mean, if I had a rifle with laid down, boom, he would have been done. But number one, for some reason, Scott forgot the two-way radios in his pack because he wasn't carrying anything. I wanted him to have nothing, but I forgot that I put the radio in his pack and I only had one radio.
Oh shit.
So there was no way to talk him into that bull. So I had to go with him to go with that bull.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, well, every time I take the glass off, he
Mm-hmm.
was bedded down for like maybe 10 minutes. And right before we were about to go, he started walking. And he started like doing like scent checks all around that little area where he was at, rubbing trees and whatnot. And there was a couple cows bedded right by him. So I'm like, well, let's try to call him in. So while we looped maybe about more than a half a mile to get around to where we could make a play on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to a spot and I can see that he probably just rubbed it with his antlers. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call from right here. So I start calling, nothing. Start calling. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let out a bugle just to see if I could get some type of reaction from this bull. Nothing. Went back to see maybe I could find them back with the glass. Nothing. This bull was gone. I had no clue where he went. There's no way he winded us because the wind was in our favor. I just don't know what happened.
They just got up and went where they wanted to go.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens.
So while we were making our way back, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw out one last bugle to see if I could get this guy to come in. And next thing I hear like things coming from the east coming my way. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, get ready. And here comes three guys running up the hill with a freaking full camera gear in hand and two other hunters with bows. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
You just called in. You just called in some camera guys. You just called in some other hunters.
Oh my! I felt so bad. I'm like, listen, guys. And he's like, was that you? I'm like, yeah, that was me. He goes, oh man. He goes, oh, I thought that was. You sounded too real. I'm like, I know.
I know.
Like,
I've been practicing all year.
But so I'm like, I apologize. I'm sorry. He's like, wow. He's like, no. And he goes, no apologies needed. And we had saw that card the other day, the day prior, on the opposite side of the ridge. So we sat down, chit chatted with them. I mean, like literally full camera crew. And this guy had like your type of camera, your type of tripod, like those getting big setup. And we just chit chatted with them for a little bit. And they're like, yeah, we've been here for 2 weeks, scouting, been up and down all these mountains and whatnot. And there's not so much action by so and so ridge and whatever. I don't want to name all these places that they were telling me, but they're like, we hear a lot more, but they're like, we're hearing a lot from the res. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I heard from the res. They're like, you can't call those bulls in. And I'm like, well, in back of my head, I'm like, well, I just called them in last night, but I'm like, all right. He's like, yeah, we're sneaking in on these bulls, and we're trying to be quiet. And they had the sneaky feet on. One of the guys had the sneaky feet with him, but it hadn't been rain over there, so it's so loud. It didn't matter even if you had the sneaky feet, you're still going to be loud.
Yeah.
And when you're in the elk woods, it doesn't matter. You're loud. You're loud. That's how they walk anyway. But I mean, they were nice guys, but they're like, that's how we're doing it. And I was like, all right, well, I don't know how we're going to be sneaky in this, man. Some spots were rocky, but a lot of it was some down timber, some like, it was choppy, and it was loud. There was no way to be quiet, in my opinion. So whatever, I said, you know what? I said, if you guys are hunting over there, we're not going to hunt there tonight. We decided to go and check out another spot on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And while trying to find the spot on the map that night, we freaking got lost, and we didn't make it to the spot that we were supposed to make it.
Right.
So in the morning we said, well, listen, we're just going to go and hunt. We're going to try to make it there in the morning and hunt it and make it over there to this different spot. And it was a while. And I told the guys, I said, you have the mountain to yourselves. We won't disrupt you. Go ahead. And, I didn't want to, the guy's been there 2 weeks. Yeah. I don't want to disrupt anything that they had going. So for like a day and a half, we hunted another area. We saw only one bull in that day and a half, and there was no way of getting any shot opportunity or nothing. Mm-hmm. So we just went on our way, and we said, you know what? Tomorrow's the last day in the morning, because we only had 4 days to hunt. So I'm like, let's try to call them in from the res. I said, the wind is in our favor. I said, that's the only best bet opportunity that we have. So Scott was like, I'm down. Let's do it. Early in the morning, we get there at like 4:45, and for some reason this morning, they're screaming like crazy. When I mean like crazy, more than they had in the other nights. And it was like a no moon kind of, almost. It was like, yeah, it was the day before, 2 days before the no moon. And we get to the same spot. I sent him to a tree that was right before the fence, like maybe 40 yards or 50 yards from the fence, and 30 or 40 yards, 30 yards from me, kind of. So that I was in this tree that was covered around, that was like almost like a 180 surrounded with bushes. Right. So I crawled inside there calling it, so they could not see me from the fence line, and they couldn't see me from the field, and they couldn't see me from the south of me. So the north, I was just basically almost covered, so they couldn't see me. The only thing that they could see me is anything that was coming from behind me. Mm-hmm. So early in the morning, I started calling, and that 380 bull that I was telling you about from the day before, same scenario. Start calling, and now this time I'm using just the FX, because I just wanted to I didn't want to mess up on any sounds, in my opinion. I just didn't want to screw anything up. Right. So every time he'd call, I'd call just straight to him. Mm-hmm. Every time he'd call, I call straight to him. And then he's coming closer and closer and closer. He gets to a point to the fence. He basically is like looking my way and says, you know what? I don't see anything that I like. And he takes off and he goes the other way. I'm like, damn, that was number one. But during this time that I'm talking with him, all the other bulls are screaming at me. There's like 8 to 10 bulls that are screaming at me. So while he goes to the left, 3 other bulls are coming straight back from the timber from the Indian reservation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to come in. I call them the 3 brothers. I have video of it. They come. They're about 150 yards from the fence. And I'm calling to them. They call to me. And they just sit there and start feeding like nothing. Like there was nothing going on. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I thought they were coming straight to me, like all 3 of them. Yeah. No, didn't happen. Then I hear another one in the background calling. Every time I'd call, it'd call. But I was trying to talk to those 3 at first. But they lost interest real quick. Right. And I start talking to this one bull, and it's coming. It's coming. It's coming closer. It's coming closer. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get this one. I know for sure. It gets to the fence line, and I start lowering the FX like really low. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got to like search. And he's not seeing it. He's not hearing it. He's calling to me. And I have all this on video.
Yeah, I
And
saw this one.
and then it was like after 5 minutes of him waiting there, he finally jumps the fence. I'm like, oh my God, he's coming right on the string. He's coming straight to me. He gets to 26 yards from Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see Scott in the video, like pulling back real slow. And he did a great job of how he was keeping his composure. But I could see him shaking. His left hand was shaking as he's pulling back. He's pulling back, and I'm seeing him shake, and I'm trying to, make sure that I'm calling really, really low now because he's so close. He's 26 yards from him, but he's probably like 70 yards from me.
Mm-hmm.
And he stops. I see him finally get the full draw, and I'm seeing him aim, take his time, and I hear the arrow go. Whew. If I don't hear nothing, I hear it just go. Whew. I'm like, I don't think that hit. I can't see anything now because the bushes are right in front of me and the trees are right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see Scott, but I can't see the elk anymore. So I'm seeing Scott grab another arrow and fumbling through and getting another arrow. And he's like waiting. I'm like, put a freaking other one in. But when he shot the first one, I already started calling again just to get his attention because I didn't want to run it off. And I'm seeing him put another arrow in. I'm calling real sweet. And I see him pull back again. And I'm like, oh, he's going to get him this time, right? Pulls back. And I'm seeing taking his time. Missed the freaking again.
Oh my God.
At this point, the elk just does like
I gotta remind myself to slap Scott when I see him.
He does a 180 and he gets to the fence line, and I call real quick to stop him. And now from him to the fence line, it's only a 40-yard shot.
Uh-huh.
And Scott just like kind of freezes. He doesn't know what to do. And I'm trying to call back in, nothing. He jumps over the fence. And I'm like, oh, Scott is just like, oh my God, I just screwed that up. I'm like, listen, just relax. Don't worry about it. Maybe we'll call in another one. Because there's another one calling to the south of me at the same time. So I'm having bulls, like I tell you, there was so many bulls calling to me. And I wasn't being quiet. I was being loud. I was being real loud. So I'm hearing another bull coming in the front of me. And I'm like, Scott, I told Scott to go from where he was at to come to me because one was coming my way. But the wind was bad. So I was like kind of like skeptical to come to me because I'm like, oh, if you're going to have a shot, it's going to be a real quick shot because he's going to win this real quick. So as I'm telling him to come to me, he finally gets to me. I'm hearing three more bulls from the back, again from the north. And I'm like, which way should he go? The bull that was coming from the south started fading away.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulls that were coming from the north, again from the res, were getting louder. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Scott, go back to that tree. Go back to the tree. So he finally gets back to the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I start calling. And every time this bull would call, I would call. Every time he would call, I would call. And I'm just talking to this one bull. Even though the other bulls are talking, I'm just talking to this one bull.
Right.
So 3 more bulls in the 330 to 350 range all come in. And I'm like, oh my God. And they kind of go almost to the same spot where those other 3 bulls were at that I was telling you about. They came in earlier. And they got hung up at like another 120 yards from the fence on the Indian res. Then I hear 2 more bulls come in, and they're coming in hard, passing the other bulls, and I see them. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, I mean, the woods came alive. So these 2 bulls get to the fence line, and they come straight towards where I was calling at the fence, and I start lowering the call. I'm quiet. I'm getting quieter now instead of getting louder.
Right.
And they start walking to the behind me from the call. So if this is the fence line, they came straight, and then they started walking to the right towards our camp.
Okay.
All right. and they're looking at the fence like they looked like they wanted to cross it, but maybe it was like a little too high for them to jump over, and they went to the right maybe to find a better spot to kind of jump over and get over to our side.
Right.
And I said, you know what, I got to switch calls. So I started using again that Steve Chappell, the one with
Estrus.
the estrus, but also the one with the wood on it,
Okay.
the external read. I forget the name of that one. And I start calling with that real sweet, like real, like soft muse. And here I'm like seeing ruffling the bushes in the tree, and here he comes. And I'm like, oh my God. He's coming. He's coming. He keeps on coming. He gets 7 yards from me. He's looking straight at me. Gets 7 yards from me. And I'm like, shh, like I'm in my head, I'm like, hurry up and shoot this. He's gonna walk on me, you know?
Right.
He's coming. And you can see in the video, because I caught it all on video,
Yeah.
he shoots and I hear whack. I'm like, yeah, and he starts taking off around, and I'm trying to video at the same time, but at the same time I could see the arrow that it didn't penetrate deeply, but
Uh-huh.
it looked high, but kind of in the right spot. Like I just he's a short guy. You gotta
Yeah.
understand, he's only shooting maybe 24-inch bow, 25 max. I would say a 24-inch bow. He
Yeah.
doesn't have that
24
much
straw.
yeah, he doesn't have that much kinetic energy going through that bow. So if he hit shoulder, I didn't
And
think it was
60
gonna.
pounds too, right?
It's 60 pounds, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was gonna penetrate through that shoulder bone to get it. Because I mean, honestly, if you would have
No
shot
way.
it, it probably would have gone through. I think where he
No.
shot it, not even
Really?
yours.
I doubt it, man. You hit the shoulder bone with any bow. I mean, unless you're shooting like 90 pounds and like 700 grains of arrow with a, cut on contact chisel point. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But definitely not a mechanical bleed. Definitely not, he's got such a light arrow. I mean, what does he get? Like 280 grains of arrow? He's not even
No, he's got
IBO.
no, he's got a
It's like,
he's got a heavy arrow. I think he's shooting three something. Yeah, he was shooting a
oh,
heavy
okay.
arrow. No, he
Okay.
was shooting a heavy, and he was shooting a fixed blade. He
Okay.
wasn't shooting a mechanical. And I think, in my opinion, if he would have got it 3 inches more to the left,
Oh, yeah.
it would have been a dead bull. It
Oh, for
would have
sure.
been it would have just been night and day. But in his defense, okay, the sun was rising from the east, and he came from the east,
And it was in his eyes.
and it was a window like this. I swear to God, because he took me there, and you could see it in the video, and he was very emotional on the video, and he's like, when I pulled back, he goes, the sun was in my eyes, and he goes, I was kind of like blinded at first, and he's telling me, I did go to the spot and I did look, and in all honesty, it would have been a hard shot even for you or me. I think with the
Right.
sun being in the eyes, it was a difficult shot. He said he got scared because he saw the bull so close to me that he was getting scared that I was going to get mauled or something.
Right.
But in my eyes, I wasn't scared at all because, I've been in the situation before. But in his eyes, it's like, I got to get this shot off. And he's like, I kept on pulling, and when it wasn't going. And he's like, I kept on pulling. And that's what he's been taught by Gary, at the archery club.
Right.
Keep on pulling, kind of, and for us, I don't do that.
No.
I mean, I not that I have an itchy trigger finger, but
I'm a puncher. I'm a puncher. It works.
I'm going to hit it. Yeah. So he gets the shot off, and so I'm iffy on the shot. Like I'm like, it's a 50-50. I'm like, we replayed back the video. It looked good, but it kind of, because the arrow I could see sticking out. I saw it with my own eyes, and I'm like, if you got it, you may have gotten one lung, maybe. I'm like, we'll see. So for an hour and a half, I made him look for his arrows to keep him busy because he was like, he was out of it for a while. Like he was so excited, like his emotions were like sky to the roof. I can't tell you how he was feeling. So I'm like, listen, let's go find those arrows that you missed twice, not once, but twice.
Poor guy.
And let's just take our time, and we'll give the elk some time to make his peace. So we spent an hour and a half finding his arrows. We found one of the two. So I'm like, all right, let's make our way. So we start finding good signs of blood, like dishes of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow. In my head, I'm like, we're doing good. So we went another 50 yards, and I'm seeing another little puddle, but like drips. And get to 150 yards, and I'm like, there's like drips. And I'm like, that's not good in my head. Then we get to 200 yards, and then there's a puddle. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, great. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to push this elk. I'm like,
you learned that from your hunt, didn't you?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not pushing this elk any further. I said, let's back out, or let's just wait. I wanted to wait right there. And he's like, let's just go back to camp. I'm like, in my eyes, I'm like, I don't want to go back to camp. I'm like, let's just wait here for now. He's like, let's just go back to camp. We'll eat, and we'll come back in 2 hours, and we'll break down camp because we had to leave that night.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? Sounds good. So we went back to camp. We spent 2 hours in camp, making food, breaking down our tents, packing everything in the truck, coming up with a game plan on how to get this elk out of here. We had still high spirits. Went there for took our 2 hours, went back, went to the spot. We followed the blood for 9 hours. 9 hours. I mean, drip, 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 puddle, drip, 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 puddle, drip, 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 puddle. We got to a point that I just saw one last drip on a white rock, and we followed the tracks also.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see their tracks easy. We were following them as well, but we wanted to stay on the blood trail, and there ended up being a lot of tracks. So he must have met up with the group, and if they meet up with the group, they could go a long way. They're not sitting down. They're getting that pressure, like, come on, let's go.
Right.
And we literally went like 2.5 miles, and we lost the blood trail. There was no more blood. And he actually saw a mountain lion while we were tracking. So what we would do is that I would stop at the last blood trail, and he would either walk ahead to see if he could re-find it and come back to me or whistle to me, and that's what I would do. I would have him sit at the blood trail, and I would do the same thing.
Just
on this
hopscotch.
trip, he
leapfrog it.
Yeah, leapfrog it basically. He basically, got to a point. He got to where a little ridge, and there was a freaking mountain lion staring at him.
Oh shit!
At like 70 yards. He said he got so scared he started screaming to me. He's like, Anthony, come here. So the freaking mountain lion took off. But yeah,
he didn't have his bow on him.
He had his bow, but he didn't have a tag.
Oh, how do you not buy an outline tag? Seriously.
We'll call rookies.
That's your job, super guide.
Yeah, super guide.
You should have told him.
Well,
buy one. Oh shit!
How many times have I hunted and I never freaking get an opportunity to mountain lion, even though it's always in my back pocket. I never get one.
It's the time you don't have it. It's the time you see him.
Exactly. We saw so much game on that trip, but honestly, ended up that we didn't find the elk, which is pretty sad. But
Yeah.
we got a lot of memories, and I mean, there's more encounters with bulls that I just didn't go over because I didn't want to take a 3-hour podcast
Right.
and make everybody bored with it. But he had opportunity other than those 3 bulls.
Well,
He got to see a lot of game. He got to hear a bunch of elk. Got to see bulls that he probably would never see in any other unit.
right.
And other people weren't seeing the stuff that we were seeing. So we were kind
Yeah.
of fortunate enough to meet up with that guy at the first day. Told us a
Mm-hmm.
couple spots, and not to say that I didn't have one of the areas circled on my map that was where we were going.
One
It
of the
was
spots
just
that I told you, right?
it was one of the spots,
That's
but
what I
it
thought.
was close to one of the spots. It wasn't
Okay. It
exactly right
wasn't the
there.
same spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So
Cool.
so
Well, man.
what about your hunt? I didn't hear anything about your hunt.
Well, I mean, it was by far the most amazing elk hunt I've ever been on. And I say that like what you were saying. The rut this year was just, and I don't know if it's like that over there every year in that unit, because this is the first time I ever hunted there. Well, and that's the first time I ever hunted there for elk, I should say, because I've hunted there for deer. I mean, they literally bugled. So let me first morning, I meet up with a friend of mine, Cody Penrod. And he's like, listen, hey, I want to take you guys to a spot. I want to show you to a spot. He had a day to hunt with us, or actually a day and a half. He had that whole day and the next morning to hunt with us. So he's like, I want to take you to show you a couple spots. I'm like, fine, man. I'm here for the long haul. You know, I'm going to be here for 9 days if it takes me 9 days. So I'd like to learn as much spots because I have my spots that I know from deer hunting, but I had never been over here. So he takes me back in here. We get to the trailhead at 3:30 in the morning. We hike in for 3 hours. The whole time we're hiking in, bulls are screaming. I'm screwing with them. I'm bugling back to them. Just having a good time walking in. Finally gets light enough. And we're way back. Well, it wasn't even light yet. It was about a half an hour. And I come over this ridge and I can hear a bull chasing. It had just snowed that night a little bit. Just a little
nice.
light, crispy, crunchy ice on top of the grass. And I can hear, it almost sounds like, like when you get if you've ever whitetail hunted in the rut and you get up in a tree stand and you can hear a buck chasing a doe around in circles in the leaves. That's what it sounded like. And he's glunking and he's like trying to just running around in circles. And we can't see it because it's dark, but I know what's going on. So I'm just starting to get a little bit of light. And now I pick up the saguaros, the 8x, and I can see him. He was a decent bull. I'm like, listen, I can't make him out. I can't tell exactly how big he is, but he's definitely a 300 class bull or better. So I'm like, let's climb up, get on the other side of this little ridge, this little bump. And when it gets light, we start calling to him. He has to come over the top of this ridge to see what it is. And he's going to give us a shot opportunity. So we did that. Well, it seemed like forever to take light. We're sitting there freezing our asses off. It was super cold. It was 18 degrees that morning. And, we had just hiked for 3 hours. So we're soaking wet with sweat. And we're sitting there. And finally it gets light enough to start seeing. So I start calling. And I crawl up to the top of the ridge and peek over. And they're not there. And I look up and they're up the other side of the ridge. And they're running around up there. He had like 10 cows with him. I got a little bit of that on video. But he wasn't a bull I would have shot anyway. So we start moving on. And we're working this canyon complex. It's like a long, narrow canyon with it's like a ridge on this side and a ridge on the other side. And there's like a flat meadow at the bottom. And there's bulls everywhere. I counted 20 different bugles from the one point that I was standing. 20 different bugles. I mean, it was like, bah, 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 bah. Freaking, there was one right below us, but the wind was crappy. He sounded like Godzilla. I mean, every time it was like, he let it out. I mean, it sounded like a freaking dinosaur was down there. I was like, oh my God, this has got to be the herd bull. So we swung around and we got down to his area, but it was so thick because they were hanging out in the Quakies, and it was just a lot of underbrush and stuff like that. So every time we make a move, we'd call them, we'd get them to like 40, 50 yards, and we still couldn't see them. But I couldn't pull them out to give me a shot. So all morning long, I mean, we must have called in 3 or 4 different bulls that I passed on. We called them 3 or 4 different satellite bulls that I passed on. It's getting later in the day now. It's probably about 1 o'clock, and they're still screaming. They literally did not shut up. We decided to head back to the truck at 3:30. That's when they didn't even stop. They didn't even shut up, but we decided to head back because it was 3:30 because we just wanted to move spots because where we were heading was getting too close to private land, and I just didn't want to get in a situation. But anyway, so we it was about 1 o'clock. There's this one bull. Like he's by himself. There's no other bulls around him, and he just sounds big.
He just walked across there. It's right on the other side. It's the big deadfall in the field below.
Is he a shooter?
I haven't made him out yet.
And he's acting almost like he has cows, but I can't tell if he has cows or not. Because I can't hear like any of the accessory sounds because he's still quite a ways away. So we're moving in on him. Finally, we get to him, and I get eyes on him, and the wind switches. I'm like, son of a bitch. And I could see him just kind of walking off. He didn't see us, but I'm sure he caught a little whiff of us, and I could see him walking off. And I looked at him like, oh, that's like a 340 bull. He's a good bull, and it's rifle season, and I'm hunting with my bow. So in my mind's eye, in my head, I was like 340 or better. I'll shoot it with the bow if I have my bow in my hand. But if I see something like 360, 370, 380, 400, something like that, I'm going to put the bow down. That's if I have it. In this situation, I only had the bow anyway. So no matter what, I was going with the bow. Actually, the first 2 days, we only took the bow. I didn't even have the gun in the truck. So I'm like, but if it's a giant bull and I have the rifle, I'm gonna go after it with the rifle. Anyway, so that same bull, an hour later, this is what I was telling you about. I bumped this bull with whatever. He circles back, and we watch him. And my friend Cody spots him, actually, and he beds down right at the edge of the meadow. And the wind's great now from where we're at. We were on our way back up the hill. We were going to hike back towards the truck. I'm like, screw it. I'm going after him. I went all the way down after him, me and Shane. We got to 96 yards. I've shot a bull. I shot my bull last year at 80 yards. So in my head, I'm like, I need to get to 80 yards, and I feel confident to kill a bull with my bow. I get the 96 yards. He's just laying there, has no clue. I almost overshot him and exposed myself to him like, sure, no. I almost exposed myself to him like I came out of the cover, and I'm like, oh shit, no, he's right here. So we backed up, and as we're backing up to swing back to catch some cover to get a little bit closer, that's when the wind switched again. Went right to him, stood right up, and he walked right up the mountain. So now we're all the way down. We're very close to private land at this point. There's a road down here at the bottom. I'm like, listen, we're not going to hike back up. I told Cody, he was all the way up the top still because he was looking through the spotter at the bull, and we went after him. I said, all right, I'm going to grab this road, and we're going to swing around, and we're going to meet you on the main road. So he went back, hiked back. He got my truck, and he met us at the highway. So that afternoon, I'm like, let's go look at this canyon that I spotted about 100 cows in. There was 100 cows and one small satellite bull and one giant bull in August when I was there deer hunting. So I'm like, there's got to be bulls in there. All those cows didn't leave, and they're going to pull in a bunch of bulls. Well, that canyon ended up being the canyon that I hunted for the rest of the trip.
Wow, nice.
We get there, and, we're glassing. We're not really seeing anything, but we keep hearing bulls bugling down below. And we get back in the truck from this one glassing spot, and we're going to move to the other side of the canyon. If you could picture the canyon, it's like a giant horseshoe. So it's like a real giant horseshoe, and it goes from the top at 10,000 feet and slopes down, and the canyon falls all the way down to the valley floor, which is at 6,000 feet. So, I mean, it's crazy. Just down. Keeps on going down. But there's road at the very, very top, which is awesome. So you can use the road system to move around on top. And then if you see something, you have to go down to get it. So we're moving, and Cody looks out because he's in the passenger seat. He looks down, and the canyon's to his side. He looks out and he goes, "Big bull, big bull, big bull." Stops. I stop the truck. He gets out. We look at it, and it's this giant bull that we had seen with the cows back in August. It was like a 360 bull. And so now it's too late. I don't have a play on him. There's no way I have enough time to get down to him. But I'm like, all right, so we're going to leave him here. We're going to come back the next morning. So that's what we do. We just kind of glass the rest of the night to see what's in there. Didn't see much, but there was a lot of action going on, a lot of bugle and stuff. So then we would go back home, go to the trailer rather, and whatever. We wake up the next morning. We get there at dark, about an hour before light, and you can just hear them screaming everywhere. You know, pause.
No, my son's right here. He wants to say hi.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
What's up, buddy?
Just got out of school.
Nice.
He's telling me the story about his elk hunt.
Nice. It's big.
Thank you. All right, go ahead. Go.
So we get there about an hour before dark, or an hour before light, rather, in the dark. And Cody's like, he brought a friend with him, which I had never met before. He said, we got to hike out onto this ridge and glass from here. And my buddy Derek was up there with us at this point. So, because it was the weekend. And we're like, we spread out along this big horseshoe up top and glass from every different direction. So I got a radio from him. Literally, it was right at first light. I got the big bull. I could see him. So I had to drive around to him, and then I had to drop down this ridge and down the saddle and whatever and get to him. By the time I got to him, he had dipped back into the trees. Couldn't see him. So all morning long, we were down in the bottom now. We just chased bugles. We were just going after. We couldn't get on anything big. I got 80 yards from these two bulls. One was, right there at 300, and the other one was a little bit smaller, and they were sparring and got in on some spikes and whatnot. But I could hear the herd bull, but I could never get to him because I kept running into other elk. Cody had to go back because his buddy had to go to work. So he left for the day. So that whole afternoon I spent it down there by myself because I left Shane up top with the camera and on the radio and glassing and whatever. And Derek was up there with his wife. He has a son with him who's only 3 years old. So they just stayed up top and glass. And I was working the bottom all day long, pretty much till dark. Had a bunch of encounters, but nothing I wanted to shoot. So the very next morning, it's just Shane and I, and I'm like, listen, let's drop down in the morning, first thing in the morning. Let's get down here and let's work the Quakies. We'll chase bugles in the dark, and we'll get in close, and we'll wait till it gets light, and then we'll make a move on them. So we do that, and I'm kind of like, we got into about 200 yards or so in the dark, and they're just bugling, and we can hear them. Now I can hear, you can hear the cows mewing and stuff like that. So I knew that was the herd bull. And it gets light, and we start getting closer, and we start getting closer. We get to about 150 yards, and out of nowhere I hear, boom, boom, boom.
So some guy got him.
Boom.
Whoa, 5 shots?
5 shots. I was like, son of a bitch. Everything shut up. Half an hour goes by, and I start bugling again just to see if I could get him to answer. He's not answering. I don't hear the herd bull anymore. All I hear is all the satellite bulls all around me. There's still 20 different bulls in the canyon. Everybody's screaming their heads off. There's 2 bulls that are like in that 340, 350 range, and then there's this one big one. So anyway, I think he's dead. I'm like, son of a bitch, they got him. Right? Well, that evening, Shane and I decide we're going to glass from the top because we got out of there. We were getting really hungry. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. We didn't bring anything down with us. So we got out, we packed up to the top, and we're glassing from the top, and Shane spots one of the 340-ish bulls. And he's like, I'm like, screw it, let's go after him. So grabbed the bow, we swung around, went through this crazy stuff. We got to him, just running out of light. We get to about 156 yards, and his cows are right there. I can't see him because he's just inside the tree line. So I'm trying to figure out a way to get down to him. And I'm like, it ain't gonna work. So let me try to call him. But there's no way I'm gonna call him close enough to me because I'm on a cliff, you know? And I'm like, this isn't gonna work. There's nothing I'm gonna do is gonna work. I'm like, let's just back out. We backed out. We swung around. So the next morning, we decided to go chase bugles again down in the bottom. I'm like, I don't want to leave this canyon. I was gonna abandon it. I was like, let's go somewhere else. Let's go back where we were the first morning. But that's such a commitment because it's a 3-hour hike and blah, blah, blah. We can't be mobile. Plus I was getting lazy. And because I'm shortcutting a lot of this. I went up and down that canyon a lot of freaking times. Anyway,
I bet.
So at this point, the morning sucked. That morning was just like, it wasn't good at all. But we noticed that some of the bulls that we had been glassing up on the east side of the canyon were now on the west side of the canyon. So that afternoon, instead of glassing from this side that we had been looking back towards the west, we swung around and we started looking towards the east. Sure enough, Shane again, Eagle Eye Shane. I'm looking at a little raghorn 5-point. I'm like, oh, I got a bull. He's laying down in this. I'm trying to describe him to Shane where he's at. I'm like, I think the herd's over here. This is that one that was with the big bull. And he goes, I got the big bull. He was looking for that one, and he found the big bull in the process. He's like, oh, or one of the bigger bulls. He's like, oh, yeah, it's that one 346 by that we were looking at that you were real happy you wanted to shoot. So I'm like, at this point, it was the same scenario as the night before. We got like an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours pushing it, left. And I still got to go a mile and something around to the other side to get to him and then drop down halfway down the ridge to get to him. Like, listen, I'm leaving the bull. I'm taking the 6.5. That's it. I'm going to go shoot this bull. So I jump in the truck and I was doing Dukes of Hazzard shit. I got from my side to the other side with the truck in like literally 11 minutes. And I had to drop down this ridge, hit the saddle, go up another ridge, and then drop down again to get to him. That's the only way to get to him. Dude, when I tell you I was freaking running, I was sprinting. I never got up and down a freaking mountain so fast in my life. I got there with plenty of light.
Oh, we spotted a really big bull in this canyon. Only got about an hour left of light. I decided to grab the rifle because he's in a spot that I don't think I could get to him with the bow. And he's too good of a bull to pass up. I waited 12 years for this tag, so I'm not gonna let it go. I'm actually jogging down this ridge right now to try to get there in time.
So I come over this ridge and I'm working my way down, and there's like a little meadow below me on a bench, about 300, it was exactly 330 yards. And I'm working my way down, and I could hear the elk all in the trees there, and I hear the cows, I can hear there's bull bugling, whatever. And a bull steps out. And I'm like, son of a bitch, is that him? And I'm like, I got the gun. I can shoot from right there if I want to. Get up to my saguaros, and I'm looking. I'm like, oh, that ain't him. I was like, this is a dink bull. I'm talking to Shane now because he stayed on the other side, and he's talking to me. We're hunting Arizona deer style now,
Uh-huh.
I said, screw this. I'm like, I'm not letting this deer go. I'm not letting this elk go. And I'm like, I confirmed that. I'm like, this because he's like, no, man, this is a big bull I'm looking at. I'm like, this bull below me he's 300 all day long. And I'm like, I'm like, you must not be able to see him. I'm like, you know what? Now I could see where you're at, and I'm looking. I'm saying, I guarantee you can't see this bull, but because this bull's there, I can't go any further really. So I'm like, son of a bitch. But so the bull I was originally after was literally another 250 yards below the bench that this bull that I can see on the meadow on the bench was. But I can hear another one at my like 1 o'clock bugling in the Quakies that was only like 150 yards from me. And I'm like, and Shane spots him now. And he goes, oh shit, that's the other big bull. That's the one that with the real like super heavy beams. He's like, and this bull is like, score wise, he wasn't as good as the one that we had seen that we really wanted the night before, the one that I thought was dead. But he's such a massive bull, and he has all the makings of like a 380 bull, but he's got super short beams and he's got short thirds. So I knew he wasn't going to score a shit ton, but I was like, he's an awesome bull. I don't care. If I can make a play on him, we can. So the hillside that I'm on was like kind of stair-steppy. And I'm sliding down. I'm thinking like a bow hunter here. I don't know what the frick. I've got a gun in my hand that I could shoot 1,000 yards with. And I'm like sliding down. And I'm getting closer. And he's like, the cows are right at the tree edge. So I calf called. I made a couple of mews, calf call. The cows come running up. Boom, stop at 60 yards. I'm like, here we go. 60 yards.
That you wish you had your bow.
Right? I'm thinking to myself, son of a bitch, I could have brought the damn bow down here, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to shoot it. So those cows, he's coming in on a string because that was the hot cow. He comes, he's lip balling, he's screaming. I could see his breath coming out. And he comes out of the trees, and as soon as I could see him, I ranged him up. He was at 108 yards at that point. So I just dialed the scope down. I'm laying down at this point. They have no clue I'm there. I'm laying down on this. I found this little flat spot, the one little flat spot on the whole. I mean, the ridge is like this, like straight up and down, crazy angle, crazy angle. Like it's so steep that when you're hiking up it, if you just reach forward like this, you could touch you're standing straight up and down. You could touch the side of the hill. That's how steep it is. So I find this one flat spot, and I'm dialing in, and he comes right up, and he stands like. I guessed him at 75 yards because he was probably about 10 yards behind the cows. And he turns sideways. He lets out a bugle, and as he's bugling, boom! I hit him with the first time. He doesn't even flinch. He's like, and he's looking around. He takes a couple of more steps, and I'm all load another one in there. Boom! Now he's like stumbling, and he's heading downhill. And I'm like, shit! If he hits that bench and he dies, he's going to go freaking, down easy because it was like a cliff right after the bench. It probably went another 300 yards if I did that.
Wow.
So he's going away from me. Now I jump up, and I got one knee down, one knee up, and I'm like, shooting offhand, and I shoot him, boom, right between the shoulder blades, and boom, he's flopping
Nice.
down right there. And I'm like, I stand up. I get on the radio to Shane, and at this point, I rub the radio, and it like switched the channels on me. But I switched the channels back. I'm like, we're celebrating, and I got like 20 minutes left of light. And at this point, the cows are just standing there. They didn't run away. The other bull that was down there starts bugling at me. It's just crazy. Has no care in the world that I just shot this bull. I'm like 150 yards from him. No care. And the cows are like staring at me at 60 yards like, thanks, buddy. You just stopped this asshole from trying to mount me,
Oh, my God.
Oh, it was crazy. So I'm like, if I go down to this bull right now, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get down to him and half an hour to get back up to where I'm at. It's going to be like a 30, 40 minute turnaround just to go look at him. I'm like,
kind of like Colorado.
Yeah, bad like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and Shane's on the other side, and he's kind of a wuss when it comes to cold. He's got no flashlight. I'm like, I'm not going to do that to him. I'm like, I'm going to get over there. I'm just going to go pick him up, and then we'll come back or we'll just come back in the morning. So I race up the hill, I get to Shane. It was right at dark. And then at that point, I'm like, now the adrenaline's out of me. I'm like, there's no way I can go hike back down this thing. I'm tired. And especially after the run I made to get to him. And I kind of ran back up too to get to Shane in time. So I'm like, at this point, it was already 37 degrees and the sun had just gone down. I'm like, I looked at the weather. I was like, it's going to get in like 25. I'm like, he'll be all right. We'll go first thing in the morning. Shane's already calling Jake and Hunter. We got a bull down. They're driving up from Arizona. They left to Arizona at 8 o'clock at night. Got to us at like 5:30 in the morning. So they get there. I just made some breakfast for everybody. We head out. We go to pack this thing out. We get to him right at 7 o'clock, right at light. And took us forever to process him because he was in such a shitty position. He was up against a boulder. It's hard to move him away from it. And because I shot him 3 times, and even though the first 2 were in the vitals, the second shot was on an angle, so I blew out the other shoulder. The first one I shot through dude, I wasted so much meat. I ruined a lot of his back strap shooting him from the top to anchor him. I was so pissed off. And the side he was laying on, all that blood coagulated on this whole side. So I lost this whole, it was a shit show. I'll never do that again. I'll never leave something like that overnight again when I know where it's at. If it's iffy with that, I don't know he died or whatever, a different story. But I lost a lot of meat. And because it was so damn steep, we packed the meat out. Well, thank God for, the boys helping me out. They got the majority of the meat up, and I was carrying the head and the hide. But the head and the hide was like 150 pounds. And it's awkward, you're like, because it wants to lean to the side and it's not super compact to your back. So every third step I was like falling and going to a knee and I was like, screw this. At this point, I called up my buddy. I'm like, is there any way you could get a horse up here? It took an additional 3 hours with the horse to get this thing out, bro. It was an 11 hour pack out. And I was just wrecked because in the meantime, so we had packed the meat up and down and we got it to a halfway point. And I'm like, listen, you guys haven't slept. You guys take a nap underneath this tree. The horses are going to come. Let's get this last little bit here. Let's let them take the meat up with the horse. And you guys just take a nap, and I will hike back up to the truck. I'll go get us food. So I hiked back to the truck. I raced into town, got everybody food, packed the food back down, and now the horses came to us, and I had to walk the horses. We couldn't ride the horses because it was so steep. We walked the horses all the way down to the elk, and then finally got them back up. It was dark. I mean, I went from sun up to sundown, and that was it, man. And the rest is history. So
I'm getting ready like you. I got to go to work.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing the story with me. I gotta give Scott some shit about that. He should have been practicing a lot more.
No, but he did good. I gotta admit, he did do good. He listened to everything I had to say. I'm not gonna. I mean, it was a really fun hunt. Like I said, it was a good time. It was. I'm glad I got to finally go into Unit 10 and.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, all I asked for and I was just grateful to be there and just cool people.
And you're outside of your house now. You're not on Wi-Fi, so I can't hear a word you're saying. But anyway, bro, thanks for sharing the story with me. I'm gonna post that up as a video, and I'm gonna use some of those video clips so these guys can see what you did, and add some video in of mine too as well. Talk to you later.